What's up, guys? Brent Hess here with Cagezilla Unchained, brought to you by the Wild Style Network. We had an awesome interview with Mr. Jeff Skeen in-house today, going over everything from growing up in the DMV to the strong belief in his faith to raising his two beautiful young girls to his start in sports, in rugby actually, and his long-time journey in the fitness industry, his dad being a Navy veteran and how he's dedicating this fight to him, and now that he will be turning 60, his why for stepping into that Cagezilla cage. So make sure you guys are there February 22nd at Cagezilla 83 to support him. And I hope you guys enjoy this episode. What's up, guys? Brent Hess here with Cagezilla Unchained, brought to you by the Wild Style Network. We're here with a special treat today. Joining us here in-house, we have Mr. Jeff Skeen. He has been CEO, CFO, and CIO in some of the top fitness brands, had some incredible ventures with private equity funds doing some pretty astronomical numbers. President of Fitness Connection, principal and CFO of Gold's Gym International, and hold on. Last but certainly not least, on February 22nd, he's going to be putting it all on the line under the bright Cagezilla lights for his 60th birthday celebration at Cagezilla 83. Mr. Skeen, how are you doing today? Thank you for joining us.
Brent, it's awesome to be here with you.
I appreciate it. I appreciate you joining us. We got a lot to unpack here, a lot of different topics I kind of want to go over with you. And of course, we're going to get to the fight. But first, give us a little background of yourself, your upbringing, and I know you've been in the fitness industry for 30 plus years, now in the healthcare industry for almost a decade. Also, tell us kind of what brought you to that health and wellness space, and what kept you there so long.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer those questions. I was born in the Bethesda, Maryland Naval Hospital, so grew up in the area. Went to Great Falls Elementary, Cooper, Langley High School. So I've been here my whole life for the most part. Yeah, local guy. Went to Virginia Tech. Go Hokies.
Go Hokies.
Yeah, absolutely. And grew up in Great Falls for most of my life. My dad was Navy. Mom, for the most part, was a homemaker. And Christian family, grew up going to church, all that type of stuff. And my father, being Navy, had some high standards, which obviously sometimes were tough to meet, but it's what I think drove me a lot of getting to where I'm at today. And and then getting to health and wellness space, it was by accident. I actually, after Virginia Tech, had a couple jobs and got to a point where, I overworked, and I burnt myself out. And so not having another job, just dropped out and took a break with nothing to go to. And it was one of those, if anyone's gone through that, it's a tough place to be. And so I took some time. And two of my high school buddies from Langley had started a Gold's Gym in '91, and they gave me a free membership because we were working together and doing some stuff. And so I was working out one day, and they're like, "Hey, what's going on?" And I hadn't told them that I had left my job, and I said I was about to take a job with another company. And they're like, "Hey, why don't you join us as a partner at Gold's?" And I thought, yeah, that's kind of not a great idea. And, I had a college degree, and what would I tell my parents? And so at the time, I said, look, I'll make you a deal. If you can pay me something to work here, I'm not working 7 days a week, 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday. And, just a different lifestyle. And also, finally, my wife has to approve this venture. And I thought for sure she would say no, because I'm like, it's the wife card. If she says no, I can tell my buddies like, hey, my wife said no.
You always got the wife
Always
card.
got the wife card. Well, It didn't work out that way. They said, that's fine. We got you covered on the money. Don't worry about the work time. But you got to figure this out with your wife. So I remember walking in to the bedroom to get the no from her, because she knew I was hanging out with my buddies. And I said, hey, I'm thinking about taking a job or a partnership with my high school friends, doing a Gold's Gym in Fairfax, Virginia. And she goes, do it. I'm like, no. The answer's supposed to be no. And she goes, look, the fact of the matter is, take a mental health break. Play with them for a year, get a real job, but I understand it, get your head straight. And so we started out with one Gold's Gym in Fairfax, Virginia, and by 1998 we had 11 locations in the DC metropolitan area.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's funny, like a lot of businesses, you think a gym is just a gym or an MMA studio is an MMA studio. Well, it's a business. It just has a different product. And I fell in love with the industry, the lives we changed. And so we bought Gold's Gym International in 1999 as a partnership with a private equity fund. And we're able to grow that from one corporate store in Venice, California, to 37 with 700 franchisees globally. And we sold that in 2004. So that's kind of how I started to get into the industry. And after that sell, I was like, I'm done. I'm just going to retire. And my wife's like, no, you got to get out of the house. You're in my way. so then I started moving on to other ventures that included investing in different companies and opening more health club chains.
That is an amazing, amazing story. Thank you for sharing it with us.
Sure.
And now you have your new venture, which is Results Redefined, correct?
Correct.
And man, I love what you got going on there. It's you're literally bridging the fitness industry with the medical industry, and obviously you speak both of those languages very well. I think that a lot of progressive thinkers know that it's something that should be and done, but just it hasn't been done. I feel like when you go to the doctor, they see you for 15 minutes, they barely know your name, they prescribe you something that they're making money on, some pills that that really is just going to mask the symptoms, and versus uncovering the root cause of kind of what's going on inside the body physiologically. And, that gets back to the fitness aspect of building a strong, healthy body, and then also incorporating some blood work and kind of seeing what you're deficient in, right? Like from the labs and things like that. I'm probably doing a terrible job describing this, but
no, you're doing great.
But what you got going on with Results Redefined, I think is groundbreaking. Tell us a little bit about it.
No, absolutely. It was interesting being in the fitness industry. I thought I was doing great work on health and wellness, because in a health club, right? That's what you're supposed to be doing. And I remember one time I was raising capital for one of our investments, and they'd asked me why I was changing the direction of our business. We actually got into a model that was $10 a month, very high volume business. And I told them, I said, for the most of my career in fitness, I actually think I was one of the reasons that led to obesity and diabetes being the way it is. And the investors are like, all right, I don't get it. My partners are cringing, like, what is he talking about? And I said, well, think of it this way. When we open health clubs in the U.S., we look at the demographic profile. We look at education. We look at incomes. So what do? We open health clubs in populations that have money, that are educated.
Right.
If you look at health care, those that have lower income, that don't have the opportunities, are really leading a lot of the healthcare costs. And so it made me start thinking, like, there's got to be a better way. And so I remember working out at one of our facilities, and I was with our chief development officer, and I was watching the people in Texas come in the doors. You could tell they're fairly lower income by the way the cars they drove. You could see their body styles kind of overweight and so forth. And I looked at him, I said, this is it. He goes, yeah, I know, we're buying this business. I said, no, look at the people coming in the doors. When you have a lower price point, you actually attract people that, when we think of a gym membership of $40, $50, you think, oh, that's inexpensive for a $5 million facility. For a lot of people, $40 to $50 is a lot of money.
Right.
So when you move to $10, we ended up penetrating into a market of lower income people. So I started thinking about them, like, wow, the gyms have an opportunity, if partnering with the right medical groups, to really make a difference. And then another thing that came to mind was I had an employee that came to me and said, this was back in probably 2016, I need a pay raise of $10,000. And I was like, all right, you're in bookkeeping. That's a huge pay raise. Tell me why you deserve a pay raise. He said, well, it's not really what I deserve. I had an accident. I just had a baby, and I can't pay my bills in the hospital. And I thought to myself, we live in a country where you can't good care. You can't afford it, and it's becoming more just for the rich. So it really started my thinking about, how do I get involved to make a difference? And my brother's been in healthcare his whole career. My business partners now have been in internal medicine, urology. And we just started talking. I was a patient first about this new world. And it's very interesting. Healthcare, they're moving into something called value-based care, where it's this idea that the medical providers are being rewarded for lowering healthcare costs, which is a pretty cool concept. You know, Medicare is doing it and the commercial payers are doing it. The challenge when I look at it is medical providers going to school never learned about lowering healthcare costs. What are they taught? You diagnose, and then for the most part, unfortunately, you have to medicate.
How to write prescriptions.
Right, and that's what you kind of touched on, right? You go to the doctor, and what may be back in the 70s, 80s, an hour visit is now 7 minutes.
Right.
So I started thinking about, I'm like, this is really interesting. So what I did in fitness, maybe it could be part of the solution to changing healthcare. And so my partners and I worked on in 2018 this idea of partnering with the fitness and wellness communities and having medical practices where we say, can we come together in a way that everyone makes money and then the patient or the person gets better health care? And so I'm really excited. We have 20 clinics now. Yeah. We're going to open, we're on target to do 300 clinics in the next 4 years, 5 years. We'll have 50 by the end of next year. And it's been a really cool, it's one of those things that's really cool because where do you get an opportunity to make a huge difference in society and to make a lot of money? I mean, many times you don't get into a profession where you say you can do that. And so I am very excited about it. And our company's name is Re-Envision. We have Re-Envision MD, which is our medical side, and Re-Envision Lab. We work on cash pay labs to help people find any underlying conditions.
Wow, that's amazing. And how has the medical industry been receptive to this?
I think it's, well, at least on our side, because we own the medical side as well.
Okay.
Our providers, what I love about our providers is they have the same perspective. Because what I found from medical groups, they want to do it differently, but they're trying to pay their mortgage. You know, so now the reimbursements have come down, so they have to see more patients. So a lot of times the patients will blame the physician for not caring. They're trying to pay their bills just like everyone else. And so when we come in and we're able to take that burden off, and then we work with the health club industry and say, look, let's bring patients in. And we found that when our providers recommend to a health club someone to join, we find that over 60% of those people will join the health club. And they'll also buy personal training.
Right.
So everybody wins.
Win, win, win.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. And that's, I mean, like, why aren't doctors prescribing, you know, getting healthy, getting strong, getting, you know, going to the gym, you know, versus popping some pills and really, you know, creating something that's really not going to help long term.
Yeah, and it's easy to see that, but think about their career. Do they get paid for referrals to a gym? And actually, my brother and I were talking about this. I'm like, I don't understand why insurance companies, because he was on the payer side, say, hey, we'll reimburse for this. Yeah. He said, well, think of it this way. The way insurance companies determine how to pay for something is there's clinical studies. So if we're going to prescribe Lipitor, we know what the outcome is. We know the costs. When you say prescribe fitness or wellness, what's the prescription? Is it kale and chicken and 30 minutes on a treadmill or fighting in an MMA studio? Like, what is prescription there? Right. So that's what we're really working towards. The Results Redefined is really my investment company, and investing in companies really towards this goal of how do we ultimately get to a point where we can prescribe fitness and everybody wins in it.
Wow, that's amazing. That's honestly, I think that's really groundbreaking and something that's going to catch fire, and hopefully within the next 4 years, like you say, what is it, 300 locations you guys are aiming for?
That's our goal.
That's amazing. Now, let's get to the fight.
All right.
Get to the fight, all right? Cagezilla 83. I know you mentioned that it was a bucket list thing for you, but I think it's something bigger than that. I think you're redefining what can be done. I think you're setting an example for yourself, for your family, for your peers, your team, our audience, of what really truly can be done. But I want to hear it from you. What inspired you to climb this mountain and get in that cage on February 22nd for what ultimately will be an incredible night at Cagezilla 83? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, Brent, it definitely is turned differently than I had anticipated. And, you know, Scott Howard, who owns Disciple MMA, where I train, has been a good friend for a number of years. And I know I started thinking about, I'm going to turn 60. Everybody has some kind of goal. I'm going to turn 50 and I'm going to climb a mountain, or I'm going to do whatever. And so it was like last December, I'm thinking, what am I going to do? What am I going to do to prove to myself when I'm 60, I can look back, my children's children can go, that was awesome. So I was like, maybe I'll do an MMA fight. Now, I played sports all my life up through college, but after that, I had 2 girls. I spend time with them. I don't watch sports. I kind of focus on them. And I was like, I'm going to call Scott because he can. It's another one of the ones where it's like, I'll get the no because he'd be like, you're out of your mind. He didn't. I called him. I said, hey, Scott, I had this idea for a bucket list. You know, I've worked out most of my life. I'm in healthcare. I feel like I'm in pretty good shape, and I'm going to turn 60. And I thought, how cool would it be if you guys could train me for a fight? Now, I didn't know anything about the arena here with Cagezilla. I didn't know any of this stuff. I just thought, I'll throw it out there. He goes, brother, that would be awesome. And I'm like, uh-oh, another yes. Just like the Gold's Gym Day, it was a yes I didn't expect.
That's right.
And so it really started out as, I tell people, I see it was kind of a selfish thing. It was one of those things, it was to scratch an itch. It was, let me prove something. And really, as I started getting into it, one night I was training with my jiu-jitsu trainer, and we just started talking. And he's like, why are you doing this? And I get this a lot. And I said, well, I kind of went through this whole thing. It's my 60th. I'm healthy. I love to compete. I love playing sports. And so we went on training. And then after the training, we just started talking about our families, and we brought up our children. And I was like, yeah, he saw me beam when I talked about my daughters. And I'm like, yeah, I grew up in a Navy family, and my father made it very clear that I was to love and respect women, that you open the door. If I didn't open the door for my mom, I got smacked. If I didn't pull a chair out for her, if I didn't die for her, if I didn't die for the women in my life, shame on me. And I'm like, what better way to show to my girls an example of what it looks like for me as a man to be their partner and to be willing to die for them, and to really set an example of, like, my father's like, you get the job done. Like, there were nights he'd be like, you said you're going to clean the woods out. Dad, it's 7 o'clock, it's dinner time. He goes, I don't care. Here's a flashlight. Get the job done, right? It doesn't matter. Yep. And I think that's sometimes missing today in society, this idea of willing to go the extra distance. And to respect women. I mean, unfortunately, I've seen some of this, and it disappoints me because I was raised in a world where, you know, I take care of them. They're my partners. Women are my partners, but I'm built a certain way. If a bullet comes at them, I take it. Yeah. And so for my girls also, it's just a sign of who their spouse might be one day. You know, who are they going to, my father told me when my first daughter was born, he says, you have an incredible responsibility. I don't think you understand. I go, what do you mean, Dad? He goes, the way you treat your daughters will be the way they expect to be treated by their spouse. So if you abuse them, they're going to look for that. If you're going to respect them, they'll look for that. So I was like, he's like, yeah, that's your why. He goes, you're going to need that when you're on the ground in the fight. Something that pulls you up, because they will be at my fight. And I want my girls to look at and go, I'm proud of Dad. You know, wow. He is who I want other men to be like. And so it really changed my perspective of just how I was doing this. It became much bigger. And right. And also, quite honestly, I always thought MMA was just a bunch of brutal guys out there beating each other up. I didn't realize the spirituality to it, the camaraderie, the strategy. I mean, it's a really amazing sport when you take a look at it. You know, I play a lot of different sports, but this one tops it. Yeah. And, you know, the other thing is Nathan Corbett, who I've worked with, he's 11-time world champion, Muay Thai fighter. Yeah, yeah. He was talking about the spirituality of it. And I love this idea in Muay Thai, how they do the praying hands to their nose 3 times. First to their God, second to their family, and third to the coaches. And I'm like, that is beautiful. I mean, it's really beautiful. So my goal is when I enter that ring, the first one will be to my God, Jesus Christ. Yep. The second will be to my family, who all will be in the audience. And the third will be to my coaches. You know, Scott Howard has been a phenomenal coach. Jamie Lamb has been teaching me boxing. He comes to my house. These guys, there are days where I'm touring stuff, and they'll say, how you doing? I'm like, man, what am I doing? They're like, you're doing great. You're doing great. So it's been a really, really cool experience, and been very fortunate to be part of it. And then to get in the cage, I mean, obviously, yeah, they're little butterflies because I've never done this before.
Yeah.
But I love to compete, and I played sports where I get a strike, and I've wrestled, I've done all these things, so I'm like, it'll probably come back to me.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, I'm certainly excited to see you in there. And you spoke about the impact of your family and your team. What kind of impact do you think this will have on other men or women who need a little influence, who feel like they're maybe a little too old to kind of get healthy? Not saying that they have to get in the cage, but just to start training and get moving. Because I know that when you first started training, that was probably some of the first things you noticed, just from the training, is how revitalized you felt and how your body just felt different. Maybe a little sore, of course, but ultimately kind of changed your chemistry in your body. Give people a little kind of maybe motivation on what would you say to folks who think they're just too old to get healthy?
Hey, you're never too old. I do think that it is interesting. The MMA thing tends to lead one to believe like, oh man, you've got to be just a beast. But if you come at it from a perspective of health and wellness, I'll tell you, the one thing that's been big for me is mental health. Right. Like I get in there, all I'm worried about is like, am I getting hit? I don't worry about what happened that day or what fight I got in or whatever it may be.
Or your business problems or things like that.
Everything disappears.
You have to be tunnel vision.
Absolutely.
And focused. Yeah.
And when I crawl out of there, I'm literally at peace. I lay down and pass out. But I think that's one thing that Scott Howard and I have talked about at Disciple MMA is that there is a really neat opportunity. It's cardiovascular, it's strength. I'm actually doing eVolt scans because I wanted to track the health performance. And it's been amazing. I've dropped body fat. I've I've gotten leaner. I'm getting more muscle in certain parts of my body because when you're striking, you pick up some muscle there. So it's been really cool. And I feel so much better. Like my balance was off. And when you get older, balance is a big issue. Right. Now with the exercises they put me through, it's helping with my balance. Flexibility. Scott's like, you're one of the tightest guys I've ever seen. I'm like, well, when you lift for 30 years and don't roll or stretch, that's going to happen. So, so they're actually being very patient. They're taking through. I highly recommend it and find a place because I think this is kind of a new concept you're talking about, Brandon. That we've talked about is it's very possible to do this and it's wonderful. You just have to have the right coaches, someone that's not in there just to rip you apart. And if you want to fight, that's what Scott's talked about at Disciple MMA. It's this idea of if you want to fight, they've got some incredible people, very high qualified. If you just want to get healthy, there's a class there for those who just want to kick some pads and want to throw some punches. And so it's been really neat to see. And we're looking at adding that as part of partnering in the MMA world on the medical side to say, right, let's work with labs, let's do all these things. Just because you're in shape doesn't mean you're healthy. We found a lot of people have cholesterol, pre-diabetic, even though they look great. So I think there's a really neat thing we're looking at is integrating that into the sport.
That's amazing. Now, another thing that I respect you about a lot is you're a God-fearing man, and you glorify Jesus.
Amen.
And he plays an important role in your life as he does mine, because what other name remains undefeated, right?
Absolutely.
Share with us some of the things you're grateful for and some of the ways that maybe Christ has played a role in your many blessings.
I wouldn't be here without him. I mean, no doubt. I mean, it's when things are tough. I mean, I don't know how people do it without at least God in their life, right? I think it's sometimes harder to be an atheist than to be a Christian because, I mean, believing some of the things, don't make sense unless you have a God. And so for me, I was very fortunate. I had parents that raised me and in a way where you put people first, always serve. Christ died for us. That's what I'm to do with my family. That's what I'm to do with my friends. And so it's an example I follow, and I have found that whether you believe in him or not, it's hard to dispute that what the Bible teaches is not at least good in the sense of working hard, doing the right thing, and those kind of things. And so for me, it's helped me as a CEO in companies to say, how do I serve my team versus how do I be an overlord? How do I treat people with respect? How do I look out for their interest? And so it's helped me become very mindful of just people in general. And unfortunately, we're not seeing a lot of people being generous and kind to each other. And that breaks my heart to see that, because what better place would it be if, we're all Christians and followed the Bible and did the things, the golden rule and all those things they talk about. How much better would life be? People wouldn't be cutting you off in traffic. They would care about you. And so it's been awesome. Plus, from a perspective of knowing when things are tough, God's always there for me. Christ is always there. And so it's been neat to share with other people. I'm not a Bible thumper, but I want to live an example and share with people about what Christ has done for me. And knowing where I go when I die is a big thing. Like, I've had friends who go, I don't know where I'm going. I'm like, that's a pretty scary thing. Like, I'd like to know when I die, right, especially if something happens to Cage, which I don't expect. But, it's nice to know that this is just the beginning.
That's amazing. Yeah, no, I know you give him strength for just being able to step in the cage, right? And I know you're also dedicating this fight in memory of your father, who played a very important role in your life. And I know he'll be in your corner February 22nd. And share with us, Jeff, a couple things of him that you remember and a couple things that you're proud of.
Yeah. My father was a poor dirt farmer. He had nothing. And he joined the Navy and ended up being the CIO of personnel for Navy. Got his master's, PhD. So he went from nothing and found a way to leave the farm life to better himself. And so that kind of work ethic and that kind of drive has really been imparted to me. The other thing that he really did for me, my father worked a lot. And what he did, and I do this with my girls, is every year he would have a date with my brother, sister, and I. And it was just our day. He's like, you get to do anything you want. We'll go on roller coasters. Even if he hated it, he'd do it with us. But the first part of the date was a self-reflection. He's like, God has created you a certain way. As your father, I'm here to help you and guide you in what you are to do with the gifts you've been given. And so he'd sit down, as young as I can remember, 6, 7 years old, he'd say, okay, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? I'm like, I don't know. But he made us critical thinkers. He's like, okay, you don't like that, but just because it's a weakness doesn't mean you shouldn't work on it.
Right.
You want to be a pro basketball player? You're too short. So I don't think that's happening. And then, so he was always doing that. And then he'd always be saying, what is the next step? So if I was elementary school, what are you doing in middle school? What are you doing in high school? What college do you want to go to? What's the career? And I remember one time as a kid saying, I want to be the CEO of a publicly traded company, not a fireman. And he's like, okay, what are you going to do about it? How are you going to achieve that? And so he always pushed me to be thoughtful, even though he worked a lot. Those days to now are precious, and the days I have with my girls are very precious because it's an opportunity to impart things to them and to help them along the ways. And unfortunately, I have friends who never got guidance, and they feel kind of lost. And so I was very blessed to have a father that really took that time with me.
Wow, that's such a blessing, and now you're passing that along to your daughters and probably making them critical thinkers as well, right?
That's the goal.
Now, I know you've been around Cagezilla and you've been to the Salisbury Center, and you probably had some teammates competing in Cagezilla, but now it's you.
Yes, it is.
And so tell us, what does it mean for you to now be stepping foot yourself inside the Cagezilla cage, and tell our audience what kind of energy you're bringing to February 22nd and what they can expect to see from you at Cagezilla 83.
I won't lie. It's a little nerve-wracking, but that's good. You need to be a little nervous.
Yeah.
My friends, when they saw me play sports, they're like, you're a whole different person when you get on the field. Your eyes change. You just go from Mr. Laughy, smiley guy to, uh-oh, he's going to kill somebody. So
yeah.
The energy I'm going to bring is I'm going to do my very, very best. I'm training very hard. I'm putting a lot. It's like a second full-time job for me. I'm taking it very seriously. And as I told Disciple MMA, I'm like, I'm working for you. Like, I am not going to embarrass you. That'd be the worst thing I'd want to do for you than losing. So, and I said, if I lose, it will be the bloodiest match in Cagezilla history. So,
you're leaving it all out there.
Both of us will leave on the table one way or another. There'll be it won't be pretty one way or another.
Hey, well, audience, you heard it right there. You know what to expect from Mr. Jeff Skeen here, February 22nd. Before we leave here, let's finish off. I want you to, is there a quote or a motto that you live by that empowers you, or that you thrive off of, maybe something you've read or something that was shared with you that you can share with our audience and maybe empower them?
Yeah, I have a saying, everything you do to the glory of God. And the idea that when you're alone, telehealth working or whatever it may be, your boss isn't watching, God's watching. So give it your best, do your very best. So if you work to God or treat people like God wants you to treat them, you'll be a very good human being, even if you don't accept him as your savior. Right.
No, I love that. That's great. And that's great that you carry that with you. And we hope that our audience will also carry that with them.
Yes, indeed.
Well, hey, Jeff, before we leave here, give us a way that we can follow you, follow your journey, maybe give some shout outs to whoever you want to give shout outs to, maybe your team, your family, whatever the case may be. If we can show you a little love online or support you in any way, let us know how we can do that.
No, that's great. I always get busted on by my girls because I don't do the Twitter and the Instagram, but I'm on Facebook, so you're welcome to friend me. LinkedIn, I do a lot of posting on both the business side and the Facebook side, and just shout out to my family who's been patient with me during all this hobbling around and coming home late, and also to my trainers, Scott Howard, Jamie Lamb, and Nathan Corbett. I mean, what a great group of guys, and all the trainers at Disciple MMA. They've been phenomenal. Some of them have fought here, and it's just been a blessing to have them as my friends and brothers now. I feel like I'm warring with them. I never was in the military, but I kind of get a sense of what that looks like.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I'm excited to get in the ring, and who knows where the journey goes.
That's amazing. Well, hey, everyone, make sure you're coming out to watch Mr. Jeff Skeen on February 22nd at Cagezilla 83. You can pick up tickets at cagezilla.com. If you want to get a discount, you can use code DISCIPLE to receive a promo code discount there. And Jeff, thank you for joining us here today. I appreciate you taking the time out to come in studio. I hope training and everything continues to go awesome for you, and you remain healthy, and everything, like I say, continues to lead up to fight week and ultimately to the fight. And it goes amazing for you. Thank you once again for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, guys. Brent Hess, once again, Cagezilla Unchained, signing off. Until next time, much love and respect. We'll see you guys all very soon.